Welcome to another episode of Moonshots. As you know, every time we bring in one of the special guests who can just absolutely open your mind to the possibilities. And this week is absolutely no exception. And today I have here with me Elissa Harris. So Elissa, tell me about who you are, but more importantly, what's your moonshot?
Wow, that's a really good question. Who I am is a woman who spent my entire life trying to just do anything I could to lift humanity, even when I was the one who needed help. I grew up as a kid, born in 1970. I just turned 49 last August. And I grew up as a kid living in a car, motels, and shelters, so homeless pretty much the first 13 years of my life. Very rarely had a home to live in. My mom, unfortunately, had mental illness. My father had struggles with alcohol and drug addiction, and who thankfully he's overcome that many years later. But it really set the foundation for me understanding the perils of humanity and how we as human beings really need to be there for each other and try and help as much as we can, even when we're at our most suffering point.
What's your moonshot?
My moonshot really is I think I have a couple. Do you have to have just one moonshot?
So let's go start with the first one and then we'll go with the second one. How about that?
My first moonshot is to really find a way, similar to what you're doing actually with Viome, is to find a way to give people accessible, affordable, preventive health care. Truly to be able to find it in every level of economy that you're in and whatever place you live, to be able to have accessible information that you can actually afford and apply in your life so that you can make measurable change and live a healthy lifestyle, an optimum healthy lifestyle.
Are you really suggesting that there might be a way to make illness truly optional?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes, there is. Obviously, Viome is one of them, but there are a lot of other ways that we can make them affordable for people.
Yeah. So what's your second moonshot?
My second moonshot is to truly find a way to create a global ecosystem of people to understand what self-love is. I think when you come from a place where you didn't get any love as a child, and there are a lot of people in the world that experience it from varying levels of adversity, you have a really hard time learning how to love yourself. And there's a difference in my opinion, between ego and self-esteem. And you should have some of an ego that helps you propel yourself into the world and knows how to be confident and all of that. But I don't know how many people genuinely know what it means to have a sense of self-love.
So why don't you tell us what do you mean to have a self-love?
I think I'm finally getting there.
Tell me what does it mean.
It took me a long time. Really just appreciating that I exist in the world, that I matter. And it isn't what I do. It isn't who I know. It isn't how much money I make. It's this theory that they have in Japan called Ikigai, which is the sheer fact that I get up in the morning, the fact that I actually have 2 feet on the ground and that I exist means that I matter. And I think that most people define themselves on these other things that make them feel like they matter in the world, and that's where they derive their self-love.
So I think of a self-love as someone who is just comfortable being who they are and not looking for someone's approval.
I 100% agree with you.
And the minute you stop looking for someone's approval, you actually can truly be yourself.
I agree with you.
And that's the best self-love one can get.
I agree. I had a spiritual teacher for many years. I'm not religious by any stretch, but I'm a very spiritual person. And one of the first things she ever taught me was, your job is not worrying about what others think of you. Your job is knowing who you are.
That's amazing.
And not needing approval from other people.
That's absolutely amazing. And this, continuing on that spiritual path, the other thing that I have always found really fascinating, and I wanted your thought on that was, everyone has, from the time we are born, told about have goals and meet these goals and always focus on the outcome. And we all realize, at least spiritually, it's the karma, it's the action. The only thing we have to focus on is, are we doing the right thing? Are we absolutely doing our best? And the minute you stop focusing on the outcome and focus on the actions, everything changes.
I agree with you. I think that that's about living in the moment, right? It's hard to do that every day as human beings because we're always thinking about what the next step is or what we did yesterday or all these different things. And not focusing on the outcome and just learning that appreciating this particular moment I'm in right now, right here with you. This is genuine. This is authentic. This is real. And there doesn't need to be an outcome necessarily.
Well, I was thinking more even on a business perspective, right? So many people always think that the success depends on what the outcome of the action is. And I really believe the success really depends on the thought, the input that has gone into it. Because
agree.
outcome is out of our control. And the reason people always get frustrated and angry and all the dissatisfaction one gets is because we measure our self-worth by the outcome. And to me, if the things are out of my control, I just don't worry about them.
I agree.
And if the things are in my control, I never worry about them because I know I'm doing the best I can. And irrespective, I just don't worry.
Well, that's very true. So we think we have a plan, right?
Yeah.
We always think, what is that quote that God is laughing when if you want to make him laugh, tell him you have a plan.
Yeah.
You can plan anything to the nth degree and you can never predict what's going to happen. I had a whole life planned for me. I was going to get married and have kids, and my husband got cancer. When I was 30 years old, when I was 29, and he passed away when I was 30. And I had a whole trajectory where I thought I would have this different life. And now it's led me to a completely different place I never would have expected and never would have been able to be a part of had that plan.
So tell me a little bit more about your journey. So you come, as you say, that from very humble, or I might even say, being homeless for the first 13 years of your life. That teaches you a lot.
It does.
So just give me your journey about what happens next. And where did you end up? And then I want to go through your journey about your own health crisis. So.
Oh, yes, that would be great. So I was really fortunate. Our family migrated to California. I was born in Colorado, and about age 12, we jumped in our little car and migrated out to California. And about the age of 13 is when I decided that I needed to make a cognitive decision to have a better life for myself. And it wasn't at any fault of my parents. It just circumstance. And so I knew I had a relative somewhere in California. I didn't know where she was. I didn't know how big California was at the time because I was so young. But I thought she had a farm. And so I asked my father, I said, things are really difficult right now. My mom, unfortunately, was also very abusive. And so I needed to leave. And I said, I knew school would be kind of my way out. And throughout my entire childhood, I would find a way to enroll myself in school. I went to 9 different schools in a 3-year period. That's was very difficult, but the gift out of that is it made me very adaptable and not afraid to talk to people, which was good. There's always light in any darkness, right? Yes. So at 13, my aunt came and picked me up and took me to her home, and it was the first time I really had a home. Wow. That I really had a place to bloom and grow and learn what it was like to be a normal kid in the world.
And how much you accomplished since? I want to hear some of your accomplishments now.
So many things. I put myself through high school. I worked. I put myself totally through college. Yeah. I think at one point I had 19 jobs and 19 units and 3 jobs, not 19 jobs. Yeah. And I got out of school. I became a self-taught nutritionist. And back to my health story, I really wanted to become an advocate for people and their health and well-being. So when I was 20, I got very sick. And I was the heaviest I'd ever been, the sickest I'd ever been. I couldn't digest food. I had headaches constantly.
You being heavy, Elissa?
Yes, I was.
I don't believe that.
Well, thank you, but I was. And I think this is a common thing for a lot of people. Even their stature, they shouldn't have this extra weight. They shouldn't have these extra health issues. So my childhood really set the foundation for what ended up happening to my health. And I went through all the conventional medical tests under the sun.
So what was going on? I mean, if you can just don't mind sharing.
Yeah. So every doctor basically tested me, said there's nothing wrong with you. It's in your head. Go away. That was the conventional medicine world. And it was my first exposure to holistic health, which was a naturopathic doctor. Back then was considered alternative. Now it's considered mainstream, right? That was 29 years ago. And she basically said, you are a mess because your gut is a wreck. She said, there's nothing I can't even give you probiotics until I give you some of these other things to help, put the cilia back in your intestines and be able to tonify your gut so that you can even receive the nutrients that you need. And she just changed my life, my diet, the way I processed things, and then got my gut actually back on track.
So are you telling me that the food can actually be a medicine?
Absolutely it can. The whole principle of food being toxic versus superfoods being, assimilating through the body as a superfood and being healthy absolutely influences your life.
So why is it that, we call the conventional medicine or MD just don't get it? I mean, are they just that dumb?
I don't think they're dumb. I think that there's a scope of practice that they were taught in, right? And they weren't taught to look at the root cause of disease.
Why is that?
I think because it was a disease treatment model. There's a whole philosophy around wellness and the wellness continuum. And there's healthy and they're sick. And the medical community was designed to just treat one symptom, one disease. They weren't really taught to go back and look at why this person actually got there and what all the layers of the onion or the orange were,
So why would they not teach that? I'm still puzzled that, obviously we know the holistic medicine works. We always know that the body is not components somehow just tied together, they're glued together.
I think that there's some schools of thought that medicine, is a place where people make a lot of money and that they don't want people to get well. I don't know that that's necessarily true on all cases. I know some actual medical doctors who they gave their whole life to wanting people to get well, but they personally chose a mission to think outside the box. So they would look at someone's diet. They would look at like where they lived. Did they live near a nuclear power plant? Did they live near a chemical company? What did they put in their body, on their skin? All those different things. But I think the holistic path of medicine was trained specifically not as a trajectory to make money, but to really create a pathway of healing for a patient or for wellness for the patient.
But why isn't every doctor, every hospital?
I don't know.
Why?
I can't answer that. I wish I could.
So why would you not change that? If your mission is to get people healthy, why would you not just either implode the current existing system? And when you start to think about the pharmaceutical companies have really become the parasite on humanity, and the humanity will come together one day and kill this parasite. Do you think it's time for us to just implode this system?
There is a theory of thought. I read a book many years ago. I can't remember the title, but it was a philosopher and medical person named Hans Nieper. He was a doctor. And he believed that if our medical system kept going the way it would not be able to sustain itself the way it is. It would implode, and it would actually force us to go back to the way medicine was long ago, which was natural, right? Which was the community doctor that knew how to put the herbs or the vitamins or the different things that would help you get better. Or even stay on a path to not getting sick.
How do we get there? How do we get this? How do we be a catalyst to implode this system, which essentially keeps people sick and makes money from them? I'm just sick and tired of this damn thing.
No, I know. I feel the same way. I mean, as I mentioned, I had a husband who had cancer. I actually had an unfortunate incident where I lost two husbands to cancer. And it was the same rare cancer that only affects 10,000 people a year in the United States. And one of them went the path completely of conventional care. The other
and how much did that cost?
That alone, he reached his $2.5 million lifetime maximum of his health insurance in 11 months. 27 rounds of chemo, 3 surgeries and radiation in 11 months.
Now, even if the people you're thinking about it, that somehow keeping people sick is cheap, that's not cheap, right?
No, it's definitely not cheap to be sick. I always have this phrase that I use. I talk about investing in your wellness today instead of your illness tomorrow. Yeah. It's so much more cost effective to try to take measures to be healthy and preventive now, because getting sick is expensive, it's painful, and a lot of times people don't have a positive outcome. Some do, for sure. And listen, medicine exists definitely to help people. I mean, emergency medicine, there are a lot of things we could not do without that, for sure. But I think the philosophy is shifting now that you've probably seen yourself with all the integrative medical doctors that are finally getting traction, and they're not the joke in the medical department. They're actually valid and considered that it's traditional medicine, even though it's using integrative components.
So let's go start continuing the journey here. So you got sick, and then you obviously found a path through nutrition to be able to get your own health.
Yes.
And now you're on this mission. And you obviously are a whole bunch of boards where you're really pushing this mission through. So tell us a little bit more about that, and what is your mission and Moonshot, and what can audience who's listening to it can actually help you achieve there?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do is really become your own advocate. You need to be educated. You can't take what one medical doctor or one establishment tells you as truth. If you are not feeling well and you know it, the joke is listen to your gut, right? Yeah. That is the truth. 90% of your immune function lies in the function of your gut, but it's also intuition, right? And if you know your body is not working, don't take it at face value and give all of your power over to an entity that says, oh, you're fine, or oh, I'm going to give you this prescription, or oh, that's what it is. Be investigative. Be your best champion, your own advocate, because no one else is going to do it for you.
So you just Google it?
You could Google it, of course, but I don't think that there's a lot of information. You don't know what's real and what isn't. So looking up people at the Integrative Medical Doctors Association website or the Naturopathic Doctors Association websites, all of the hospitals now, like Mayo Clinic and Duke and Cedars-Sinai, and all these facilities are having actual wellness and integrative care facilities, so you can go in. Even David Geffen gave money to UCLA for an integrative oncology department. which was one of the first. So they're realizing that there is some serious substantive information out there about integrative holistic care in with conventional care.
So the people who are listening to it, I mean, and they obviously are just as frustrated as you and I have been, right? Is that they have these chronic diseases and they just, constantly giving this medicine. You take one medicine, now you get 3 more symptoms.
Right.
You get 3 more medicine, now you have 9 more symptoms, and you get 9 more medicine. And by the time you get to our age, you're popping more pills than blueberries. Right. And there's more problem with that, right?
Right.
So how does one, so people who are listening to it, they're saying, you know what? I am you. You got out of it. Help me, guide me. What do I do? What's the first thing I should do?
The first thing I would definitely do is look up for an integrative doctor. Okay. Somebody who you feel that you can, especially if you're somebody who's been part of the conventional paradigm for a long time, it's very difficult for you to take a huge leap of faith and go straight to somebody who might not be considered, substantiated. Integrative medical medicine now is so huge and popular. Go see them. If you can't afford them, start looking up information in books on health and wellness. People that are credible, like Dr. Mark Hyman or Dr. Frank Lipman, or these people who've had a really great career in helping bring integrative medicine to the forefront with legitimacy.
So, obviously, is it covered by medical insurance?
Some of it is now. So there are a lot of tests that have been put out on the market by labs that do all these different unique types of tests will cover most of the insurance now. So Genova Labs, for example, they do great diagnostics and they actually will cover, I think I have to do a 24-hour hormone test every so many years because I'm a woman and obviously I'm going to have hormonal changes. And depending on the insurance, they'll cover anywhere, I think the test is around $600. They'll cover anywhere up to where you only have to pay like $120 for the test.
So you're not a doctor.
No,
right?
I'm not.
Right. And you're talking about the integrated medicine doctor. How did you find them? You just go and say, okay, is this someone? No, you Google them, and what do you do?
Well, you definitely can go to the websites and the associations.
Yeah.
There's a National Integrative Medical Doctors Association. There's a National Naturopathic Doctors Association and different ones where you can look up and they're actually in a registry, so you can find them. A lot of traditional hospitals now have integrative medical doctors as well. And most of the medical schools actually have integrative medicine departments. So you could call them up and find out if there's someone in your area or somewhere that can service you.
I want to go back to your childhood story. It is people when say, they come from humble background and they really are homeless. I want you to just go back and think about when you are 2 years old, you're 5 years old, you're 7 years old, and you're looking at other children who have all these privileges, and here you are and say, let's go party and let's go do this, and you don't even, or I'm going to come your home and visit. What do you tell them? So I just want to, see.
I remember a moment where I was probably in 2nd grade.
Yeah.
And, I had been dropped off at school after being in the car all night long, and my shoes had holes in them. My clothes had holes in them. And, I was as kempt as I could be, living in a car, not having a shower. And I remember the kids literally dancing around me in a circle, singing in a very, kids can be,
very
I love
mean.
children, but sometimes they can be a little mean.
Yeah.
And they were teasing me about my clothes and singing this song about how Elissa's clothes have holes in them. And, she's poor. And they even knew that at an early age. And I think for me, I just tried to look at them with compassion. Mm-hmm. I don't know where that came from. There's a theory in psychology called the resilient child theory. Mm-hmm. Maybe you've heard of it, where in a dysfunctional home, there's usually one kid who has some innate ability to not be bitter and hate the world. And somehow that was me. And so I remember thinking, I really hope that you have a good life. And I'm going to hope that for myself.
But how long can you go on when now you're 8 years old and you hear the same thing? You get 9 years old and you hear the same thing.
It erodes your self-esteem for sure. I am not a Pollyanna by any stretch. Yeah. I've had my dark nights of the soul. I have done work on myself. Every kind of thing you can imagine. I started at 17 when I went to college. I thought I wanted to be a psychology major. And I got into my first couple psychology classes and I was like, I can't help anyone until I help myself. Mm-hmm. So I started doing inner child workshops and personal development and counseling and everything I could to try to understand how I could shift that mindset of not thinking I was good enough, as good as anyone else. It took a long time. I still struggle with it sometimes. You know?
I have one more personal question for you, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to. Here you went through a very tough childhood. You get married, and your first husband, unfortunately, with a rare cancer, dies. And it takes a long time for you to recover and find love again and marry the person, and he dies of his same rare cancer. How does one look up every day and wake up and saying, God, why me?
I did ask that question. I did. I think I went through about 6 months where I was like, okay, what's the real meaning of this?
Yeah.
Because, you know, my first father-in-law said a lightning should not strike twice in one place. And I've had multiple, there's a lot of other things in between we won't go into that have happened. But I think I just truly believed and I've always had hope and faith in the human race. Mm-hmm. And I always felt like there was a purpose for things. Even if it wasn't a good thing that happened, there must have been a reason. And so everything that I've ever experienced, I realize now has really been on that path to getting me to this place where I know that I was put on this planet to lift humanity. I know I was put on this planet to help people understand that even in our darkest hour, we can be our brightest light. And it's not easy, but we don't have to give up.
So I'm going to push you just a little harder. So here you are going through these tough times. It's so much easier for us once we have come out of it and you look back. You can come up with a lot of ways, how, today, how you think about it. But just go back in that moment when it's happening. What would you tell someone who is going through it right now? Oh. And what should they do? Because that to me is just a meaningful thing. If you can give them some steps when you're going through this particular thing, your husband just died and you say, oh my God, why me? What would you tell them?
I think when I was having one of my darkest moments, I was sitting alone, laying on my floor, and I was crying so hard. Mm-hmm. I didn't think it would stop. Yeah. And I had to just literally put a hand on my heart and a hand on my stomach, and I had to breathe. Mm-hmm. And I had to take in this breath and say, I am loved, I am safe, and I am at peace. And I had to keep saying it over and over and over again until I could feel it in my body and in my soul. And once I felt that, I was able to pull myself up off the floor, pull out my, phone book back then or my phone now, and find someone to help me get me to the next step. It's hard to do it on your own. We all have that capacity, but knowing how to reach out, I am not good at asking for help. I will help anyone. I would almost lay down in front of a train for people, which is not a good thing. But
it is a good thing, by the way. There are people like you who this world needs.
Thank you. But also you have to realize in order to help other people, you can't also sacrifice your own well-being too. So there's a balance there. But to learn how to reach out and ask for help, and to learn that it's okay, and to learn that you are lovable, and that you can seek out a counselor, a doctor, a therapist, a spiritual advisor, whatever is going to resonate with your heart and soul. And it's going to change. It might be something different, for the first couple of years you're dealing with it, and things will come along, and maybe it'll be a different mechanism in a few years after that. So that's what I would recommend.
But, would it be that you worry that you can't share your story because people are going to judge you?
I only worried about that early in life.
Okay.
I'm more worried that I didn't feel like I had accomplished all these great other things that people had accomplished. I went through the imposter syndrome, feeling like everything I had done was this kind of crazy etch-a-sketch. Instead of a linear trajectory like this for my career or my life, it was this crazy concentric circles that didn't seem to make any sense. But now they all seem to make sense. And so I don't judge myself as harshly as I used to.
But you are a super successful woman because you obviously haven't told anyone all the wonderful things that you're doing. And today you are not just come out of it in your own struggle. You are helping the corporations. You are helping people. You are on the board of this, the governor's thing where you're trying to bring the health and mission together. I mean, you obviously have not only just come out of it and survived, you're thriving. And more than thriving, you're helping the humanity thrive. So I want to just now talk about a little bit more. What are the things you're accomplishing now? Where you go from here? And what can we look forward to from Elissa in the next 10 years?
That's a great question. I'm very excited because for the first time in my professional life, I'm part of an incredible company that I have 7 partners, soon to be a few more. And we're an entity that's brought together all of these people with these incredible networks where we're working to amplify people's impact.
And what's the name of the company?
It's called Fifth Element Group.
And why Fifth Element?
Well, initially it was about the Fifth Industrial Revolution and how we want to be part of that. Another component of it is actually uplifting women and girls, SDG 5, if anybody believes in the Sustainable Development Goals, if you know what those are. Sure. There is a global philosophy that if we're going to reach all of those goals, then the first one we really need to reach is empowering women and girls around the world, gender equity.
Of course.
We believe that women are the shepherds of our health, our wellness, our
and
planet,
community.
And our community.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure we do that. So that was part of our naming.
Yeah, and so now tell me a little bit more about what is the purpose of this group and what are you trying to accomplish here?
So we are an impact accelerator or amplifier, we call ourselves, and we come together with 4 different kinds of entities. We serve a donor, an impact investor, a brand, or an NGO. And usually the NGO we help pair with another entity in order to help lift that initiative so that
Why does it have to be an NGO?
Well, a lot of nonprofits. We've had this discussion. Are we going to go there, Naveen?
But it can be a for-purpose company.
Absolutely can be a for-profit company. I think brands and for-profit companies are finally getting that if they aren't part of something that's actually doing something to lift humanity, a cause, then they're missing the boat because their consumers or their patrons really want to know, what is it that you stand for? What is it that you care about? What are you going to get behind?
The reason I always say that is, to me, any business, if you want to sustain a long-term business, you have to solve a problem. Unless you're helping your customer actually get better and solve their problem, you're not in a business for long term.
That's absolutely right.
And that means you can only way to do well is to do good in the world. And the only way to do large good in the world is to create profit.
That's right.
Otherwise, if you're a non-profit, you can do small good in the world. And if you want to do large good, create profit.
That's true. That's true. We talk about, the whole concept of profit for purpose, right? I mean, you obviously have deliverables. You have to have certain metrics you need to meet. And obviously you want to be a profitable company. But if you aren't leveraging that for good, for social good,
you can't last too long anyway.
That's absolutely right. Not in today's world. That's for sure. I mean, if you're looking at 2 products on the shelf that are almost identical and one is doing a social good project and the other one isn't, 9 times out of 10, that consumer is going to take the other one. So it's really, really important to kind of shift.
So describe again, so how does it work? So you got impact investors and you have the companies who have the products that have a potential to do tremendous good in the world.
Correct.
So how does it all work?
So we come in and we actually develop strategies for these companies, whether it is that they want to take an initiative and unlock funding for social good, if they want to create a strategic partnership alliance with other entities that actually are around the same ecosystem and can do things better together. We have a division of our company that actually is around talent.
Okay.
So with a methodology called Leaders Who Care. So if a company is looking to bring in new leaders with the mindset already in existence that they are a leader who cares and want to do these social good initiatives, that whole entity can be served as well.
So there are a whole bunch of people listening to this right now as we speak, and the people who in fact are the impact investors, people who say, look, I want to do good in the world, I just can't find good place to be. Or people who are listening to it say, I got a product that can really help lots of people, I just don't know how to go about it. How would they contact you?
Well, you can find us at fithelement.group is somewhere you can reach us, or you can reach me actually at Elissa at fithelement.group.
And how do you spell the Elissa there?
That's ELISSA. It's like Melissa without the M. And I'm the Chief Impact Officer and a partner in the company. The other thing I'm very excited about is that part of the reason I haven't, you were asking about feeling successful and all these things. Part of the reason that I haven't really been out in the forefront, I've done some public speaking and things like that, but I've always been behind the scenes lifting everyone else. And I always felt like everyone has a story and I'm just one of them. But thankfully, a lot of my colleagues and partners have been very much about helping me get my story out there and being a conduit for information, much like you. So I'm really excited that I'm looking to start my own podcast.
What's the name?
It's called A World on Purpose.
Awesome.
And it's a purpose-driven podcast, basically helping highlight people that are showing that in a world where we feel like we're not getting anything done and we're not making any measurable difference, people are living with purpose, for purpose, and on purpose. And very well-known people that I'm excited to be interviewing, and with tactical information and tools that they've used and their tipping point of when they wanted to get involved in impact and purpose, and then people who never have a voice, people you would never have heard of or ever seen. So I'm very excited about that.
That is so awesome. I hope I get invited to the second part.
Well, I'm hoping you'll be a guest on my show, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Very excited.
Yeah. So, Elissa, if they reach out to you, what would you like them to tell you that would really warm your heart up? I'm just trying to see when people write you the things, they know exactly what to tell you.
What is it they care about?
Okay.
That's the first thing I would want to know. And not profit.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that fuels their soul? When they wake up every day, what is it the first thing they think about that they think they can make a difference in the world with? Even if they had no limited on budget, no limited on time, no resources, what is the one thing that they would want to do today?
I think you're so right. I mean, I tell entrepreneurs, if you're not jumping out of the bed when you wake up, you're working on something wrong. Mm-hmm. The minute you go to sleep, you must know why you spend all day doing, and you wake up in the morning, you know exactly why God still woke you up instead of letting you sleep.
Exactly, right?
And every one of us, if we don't have that type of obsession, so I tell people the passion is for losers. The winners have obsession, right? Mm. You can have a passion for collecting stamps, but obsession is something you say, I'm going to dedicate my life to making illness optional. And that kind of obsession, once you get it, you go to sleep thinking about it, you wake up thinking about it. And so what are the kind of things, kind of companies that you embrace? What are the kind of impact investors you like? And how can all the people who are listening to it can actually help you amplify your mission?
Thank you for that. We love anybody, any kind of consumer brand, any brand that wants to do a social good project, whether it's in CPG or whether it's in environmentalism or whether it's a car company, anybody who knows that they actually want to make a difference. And here's the thing that's really important too for a brand. There's a lot of skepticism around good washing, right? Oh, they're really not doing anything. They're just writing a check and they're actually just giving it off to their CSR department. We get to come in and actually put practices in place or a strategy in place that actually shows them how they can reach their consumer and unlock that funding for social good and actually make a measurable difference, whether it's supporting, more trees being planted in the rainforest because that's something that they're passionate about. As far as an impact investor goes, a lot of the things we love to do are around resilient technologies. Mm-hmm. So people that are trying to do stuff towards climate change, instead of the whole doom and gloom conversation that there's anything we can do, there are people that are actually doing incredible things. And how can we help fund those?
So those companies that have a product that can do tremendous good in the world, obviously at this point, they're still trying to figure out how to launch these things and how to amplify these things. Mm-hmm. Would they have to pay you money? Because these people have no money.
Yeah, they would, but sometimes we would be able to partner them with a strategic partner that could help them. Okay. So especially like if there's an NGO doing some resilient technology and they don't have the budget, part of what we create is what's called an omni-win. So we bring a partner in that can actually help pay for that activation and then be able to deliver on it.
Got it. So now I'm back to you as an individual, Elissa, right? That having gone through all this, and I, have gotten to know you at least for the last, give or take, about 18 hours now. And I see this tremendous amount of positive energy in you. So how do you develop such positivity, having gone through so much in life, where you essentially start to say, everything is possible, having seen that nothing actually works?
That's interesting. I meditate every day.
Okay.
That's something that I do consistently. And for me, it helps bring a sense of calm and peace. And I also have a gratitude practice.
Okay, tell me more.
So there's a philosophy in the spiritual community that you've probably heard of scarcity mentality, mm-hmm. right? And always thinking about what it is that we don't have.
Yep.
In order for me to get through my day and feel like that, not worry about the outcome like we talked about, I'm always grateful every morning and every evening. The first thought in my head is what I'm grateful for right now in this moment. Mm-hmm. The things that I have in my life, I have food on my plate, I have shelter, I have amazing people in my life that are basically chosen family and different family, my partners, the good I'm doing in the world. So for me, the way I stay positive is having absolute gratitude for everything I possibly can. It just helps me stay grounded.
What else? So meditation, gratitude, what else?
I exercise every day.
Okay.
If I eat well, I feel so much better. Like if I have I'm human, right? I mean, I'm certainly not perfect by any stretch, and I would never.
Really?
No, not at all. In fact, I am
So tell
perfectly
me something
imperfect.
so tell me about something that imperfect you did today.
Something imperfect I did today?
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know.
See, you're perfect.
I'm not perfect, but I do have moments where I'm not. Okay, so I love dark chocolate.
Okay.
That I don't even know what my microbiome would say about my dark chocolate, but I love it. So sometimes when I'm really stressed, instead of eating my 1 or 2 squares a day, I might eat a whole bar.
Seriously.
But it's like this big.
Okay.
But I don't beat myself up about it because I try not to beat myself up about it. But I'm human. Sometimes I'm like, oh man, I shouldn't have eaten that whole thing, and now I'm gonna.
So you feel guilty about it?
Okay, a little bit, but then I have to talk myself out of it. So remaining positive.
Yeah.
And trying to find a good outlook on things and whatever, it's a constant, it's like yoga. I've been practicing yoga, but that's another thing I do. For 29 years, yoga has been my go-to. And we talk about putting it on the mat when you're in the practice, but also taking those principles off the mat. It's a practice.
So tell me more about what are the yoga principles that you take off the mat?
Being able to not beat yourself up, being able to understand that everything evolves and things change. And so you might have a moment where you're frustrated and maybe you yell at traffic. And then you think, oh gosh, that wasn't very zen of me. I think I need to get a little grounded because I can't control traffic. And so it's just a constant ebb and flow, just like life, right? Mm-hmm. Just like the ocean. Everything is going to come in and go out, and we have to, really breathe with it.
All right. So here we're coming to the end of the podcast here. And I just wonder, in this ebb and flow, the time just flowed, right? And so if we are going to say goodbye to our audience, what is the one last message you would give them? A message of hope, message of inspiration, any message you want to give it to them. And look right into the camera and give them the message.
Okay. I hope it doesn't sound cheesy.
No.
Because some people might think it does, but I really truly believe that we have to learn to see each other from a perspective of what I call this shared humanity. That we're not male, female, we're not any different sex or race or economic background, that we all come from the same place. We all bleed the same. And so we really have to have a love and compassion for humanity and understand that what we give out, we get back. And so I'm hoping that that's what people will walk away with is a sense of love for humanity in general and for yourself.
Well, guess what? Whether I don't know what I'm falling in love with myself, but I've already fallen in love with you, Elissa. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Well, that was an amazing episode of Moonshot. So please tune in again for the next episode, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.